Most consortium-affiliated unions, including Denosa and Nahau, earlier rejected government's 3% wage increase. We're now joined by SABC President Ruth Ntlokotse to weigh in on the public sector strike. A very good afternoon to you, Ruth. Thanks very much, ma'am, for joining us here on SABC News.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting us. Good afternoon, Flo, and the listeners.
You're most welcome. All right, let's talk about the turnout of the strike. What can you tell us about what took place today before we get into how the negotiations are looking at this time?
We are coming from a very successful National Day of Action. I must indicate that we are very much happy in terms of the turnout. Here in Pretoria, I think workers came out in numbers. In Durban also workers came out in numbers, and the only place where we had to cancel the strike is in Western Cape as a result of the Santaco strike. But we are very much happy in terms of the turnout so far.
Yeah, we understand that you'd earlier rejected government's 3% wage increase. Talk to us about, where the negotiations are at this point, but also how government, in fact, perhaps tried to justify that 3% wage increase, which you obviously then rejected.
I think we are all aware that as things stand, the government has unilaterally implemented the 3% wage offer, irrespective of majority of our unions that didn't sign for that offer. I think that's where things stand. And in terms of the memorandum of demands that we submitted, we're actually calling for the government to come back to the negotiating table, because that 3% offer that is on top of the table, the cost of living is not even comparable as opposed to what we're putting on the table. Consider the fact that in 2020, the public sector workers, they didn't receive the increase after the government reneged from the 2018 collective agreement. And what we are noting as a concern from the SABC side is the direct attack from the government to our collective bargaining. That as it is, we know that even the public sector employers, they just followed suit. The negotiations that took place after the reneging of the government from their collective agreement, we've seen...
Let's talk about some of the other concerns that the unions are highlighting, but obviously as well as the public sector workers, because we know there are some other issues that I would imagine you've put in your memorandum of demands. This, of course, excluding the issue of wages. Okay.
Among other issues that we are raising, I think I've already spoken about the attack on the centralized bargaining. And the second issue, we are demanding a reversal of the austerity measures that are targeting the public sector, and we know that people who are suffering as a result of that is the working class and the poor. And we are also saying that we want the government to protect the public sector bargaining council as a legitimate institution for social dialogue and stop disempowering it. Like I said earlier on, that they are now they've just reneged from the 2018 centralized bargaining, and even now they've just unilaterally implemented the 3% wage offer. And then we are saying that we are still adamant with our 10% wage offer. And then we are saying that the government must employ. There are a number of vacancies that are making the services that the public sector to be so inefficient. We are saying that the government must employ permanent, the reservists, the community health workers, the teachers, assistants, the police. There are quite a number of vacancies. And then we are also calling for the enforcing of all the people that are working in that sphere. And then we are also saying that we demand the immediate review of the cost of contracting the state through the procurement spending and goods and services. That's where lots of corruption is. So these are some of the issues that we put under our list of demands.
And in this memorandum of demands, where you have asked government to come back to the negotiating table, what has been their response so far? Does it seem as though, are you getting a sort of positive response that indeed there is a willingness to come back to the negotiating table? And from which point will you start to be reasonable in terms of where you can accept? At what offer? Let me put it that way.
Okay, the government was represented by the Minister of Employment and Labour, Silas Messi, and there were also representatives from the Treasury. And they haven't, they were not given an opportunity to address workers. Because of workers, they feel that they must go back to the bargaining table. That's where we can be able to engage each other. And we gave them 7 days to respond to our list of demands. I think immediately after that, we take it from there. But as things stand, I can safely say that there's no response from the government. They came and received our memorandum of demand. And from the negotiating table where we are calling them, like I said earlier on, that we are saying that the wage offer that they're putting on top of the table, it's not comparable with the cost of living.
All right.
Yeah.
Ruth, thanks very much for speaking to us. Ruth Ntlokotse is the SAFTU president, of course, as she is weighing in indeed on the public sector strike, which is ongoing.